Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Elektor Lab Talk, this time number 35. I'm Brian Tristam Williams, and Jens is out today, but I'm in great company with two brilliant guests. Firstly, Saad Imtiaz, Electro contributor and circuit wizard engineer. Saad, how's it going?
All good, Brian. How are you doing?
I'm great, thank you. And another one who's no stranger to Lab Talk is Sebastian from Baltic Lab, who is in Germany. How are you, Sebastian?
I'm great and glad to be here again.
Awesome. Been keeping an eye on your YouTube channel. You've been sharing some really clever RF and DIY ideas online lately, as usual. So it's good to see you again. And today's theme, we have our circuit special coming out in August. So we'll be giving you a sneak preview of that. It's not out yet. So if you're watching, you're in good company now. Plus, with both Sebastian and Saad here, some top maker advice and a few weird experiments from the benches. But let's go to giveaway time, as we always do. Tell you what you can win in this episode. We've got an Elecrow All-in-One Starter Kit for Raspberry Pi Pico 2 up for grabs. It's got touchscreen, sensors, tutorials, the works. If you want to win it, stay tuned for the code word later in the show. And I also want to thank our sponsor who's giving you this show for free, valued at €25. It is Peak System. If we can put up that banner, our webinar is sponsored by Peak System, a German company specialized in hardware and software for CAN-bus communication, which originated in the automotive industry, but is also widely used in industrial and medical applications. And Peak offers a wide range of products, including CAN interfaces, I/O modules, data loggers, diagnostic handhelds, development tools tailored to the needs of development, service, and test engineers. So that's a big thank you to Peak System. So let's get into some chit-chat. Let's get Sebastian and Saad up on stage. There we go. So guys, you've had a look at some of the circuits that we've got coming up. We will show some of them on the screen. What was of particular interest? I know Sebastian's all about RF mostly.
Yes.
And Saad, you specialize in a lot of power stuff.
Yeah. For me, the first one was the foot warmer by Roel Artis. He was from the Netherlands. Yeah, the cool thing about it is that he uses NPN power transistors to power or warm up his foot warmer. A quite power efficient approach. And a well detailed article. Yeah, I won't talk much about it because then I will be giving so much away. But it's a really good read, for sure.
Well, we have plenty of articles coming out in the August edition. So it's a foot warmer. The first time I saw that title, I thought it was a food warmer because it has a plate and everything. So I guess if you're into power electronics, then warming your feet up is one way of having some fun this summer. And then I'm a retro guy, as many of you will know. So I enjoyed the Simon-style memory game. It's based on an 8085 and some touch sensors, and there you have it. It's obviously not the original design, but it's always great to see something make a reappearance 40 years later, if you're me, that is. And then Sebastian, from you, this would be up your alley, boosting the Wi-Fi range on ESP32 C3 SuperMini. I kind of like this.
Especially since this is just an antenna mod. At least that's what the subtitle says. And many people try to get more power put in amplifiers, be it transmit amplifiers or preamplifiers. And so many people just simply forget what magic you can do with just a better antenna. If you'd give me $100 to either spend on amplifiers or antennas, I would spend it on antennas. Most people wouldn't. And I haven't seen the article, but I will certainly read it.
Yeah, you said it was of interest to you. We discussed on our last show together, Sebastian, on Electro Engineering Insights. We agreed that everybody wants an amplifier or a gold-plated cable, but there just is no substitute for metal in the sky, as they say.
Yes, absolutely correct. You see that with amateur radio operators, CB radio operators. They buy these 100-watt power amplifiers instead of just investing into a solid antenna that you can simply build yourself for very cheaply.
Exactly. And we spoke about running a long wire for shortwave as well. I don't think my backyard was big enough when I initially tried it. We'll go back to the circuit special articles, but let's welcome our audience. We've got people from all over the world, as usual. Frank de Hart, one of the first, again. We've got Vienna, Austria. We've got the Netherlands. We've got Paris. We've got Georgia in the USA. And not Georgia, next to Armenia and Azerbaijan. And of course, CJ is here from the United States. So it's a busy audience. We've got 127 people right now. Oh, look. Hi, Brian and everybody from sunny South Wales, UK. So that's nice to see. Not New South Wales. So you've got a lot of questions and comments in the audience. Please keep them coming. We've got a lot to talk about here, and we'll go through a few things. I'm going to go back to Circuit Special now. And let's have a look at this. I enjoyed this one because I used to work with I2C circuits back when it was fairly new in the 90s. And yes, sometimes if you have a defective component, it can take down the whole bus by holding down one line. So our author here, Tam Hanna, has made a circuit that will release the line and save you from your bus getting hijacked. Very clever, Tam. Thanks for this. And yeah, as you know, Tam is quite a character. We see him at a lot of the conferences and exhibitions, and very smart guy as well. So if he's with Saad and he's with Sebastian, it's the brains trust of the organization right here. I won't speak for myself, but Sebastian, let's go back to you and your latest RF experiments. In fact, I'm going to find Baltic Lab on YouTube now while we talk. What have you been doing for fun while we've been making the Summer Circuits edition?
What have I been doing? I've been listening to the International Space Station. I've installed a new network controlled, yeah, there it is, the second video, network SDR receiver on my roof, which is pretty cool. You can access it from anywhere in the world and listen up to 2 gigahertz, and it's now mounted on the roof with various antennas. And that was my newest project. It's not really a big project, but it's a fun project for sure, because there's just so much to listen to, which we dived into last time. Interestingly, the antenna is a very small mini whip antenna, which I also showed in the last live stream, which is about this size and covers from 10 kilohertz up to 30 megahertz, which kind of goes against the long waves, but wavelength require big antennas theory, but it works extremely well. And best of all, anyone can access it. The information is in the video description. So if anyone wants to play around with an SDR located in Germany, go for it. It's there. And if you want to buy one, the Electro store has that one available. I'm not getting paid to say this, by the way.
Maybe we'll slip you a few bucks under the table.
Maybe.
It's not a quarter wave dipole. How do you manage to get it to work with such a short antenna?
Well, the trick is that the input stage is extremely high impedance. It's a very high impedance JFET amplifier, and therefore it works. You only need to abide by that half wave or quarter wave length rule if you're trying to match it directly into 50, or rather 75. It would technically be, or if you want to be technical, it would be 72 plus some J something. But if you ignore that and actively build an amplifier that's high impedance, you can get away with a just very small piece of metal.
Wonderful. And there's a comment related from Pussy. Some hams stick to the 20-80 rule, 20% of money to radio, 80% to the antenna. Sounds good to me.
Yeah, Pareto principle in action, and that's the best way of doing it.
Exactly. I'm not sure what your question is, Benjamin. You're asking about an E-field probe. Is that something you played with, Sebastian?
I have a kit, of course, for EMC issues. Surprisingly, the cheap ones you can get on Amazon, which are basically just PCB strips, work fairly well. I mean, you can buy them, but for amateur scale, I wouldn't do that. Maybe he also meant that the antenna is kind of like an E-field probe, which would also be accurate. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Benjamin, maybe you can clarify what you're asking.
Yeah. I must say it's quite exciting, your weather images from space. It's making me want to get into that sort of thing. A little bit slightly off topic, but back in the 90s and 80s, there was teletext on television, and the data was encoded in the vertical blanking. Now,
Yes.
VHS tape is too low resolution to resolve that, but some people have worked around it, some genius physics, deconvoluting the signal. So now there's a club of people who are retrieving old teletext pages that were thought to be lost, but now they're restoring them from the VHS tapes from off the vertical interval. And I've got a ton of VHS tapes, so I'm keen on trying that out. I've just ordered a video capture card that can do more than just 576 video lines, because you need to get above the picture to get to that data. It's running at 6.9375 megahertz. I don't know how I remember that bit rate, but clearly that is too high resolution for your 3 megahertz VHS, but somehow they did some magic and got it to work. So do you spend a lot of time on the weather satellites?
Yes, but not on the APT stream, which is very low resolution. That's what this video is covering, because it's simply that there's the frequencies, the easiest to receive for anyone, but there's also a high quality picture downstreams. And actually one of those satellites is no longer operational, and shows you how quickly time changes. I forgot which one, but one got completely decommissioned. But yeah, I watch high quality downstreams, and it really is interesting. I mean, you could say just go on the internet and look at it. It's free, but it's the fun in it. It's really just putting something outside and receiving it off the air. It's the same with the International Space Station. Sure, you can listen to a live stream, but doing it yourself is kind of what it's all about.
Yeah, exactly. I mentioned this as well in a previous show. There's no magic in just putting on your satellite system and having TV coming through your local provider from Portugal or whatever. Back in the day, with a 4.8 meter dish that I had, 16 foot for you Americans, it was a huge dish, and I couldn't afford a motor for it, so I used to go up on the roof at 2 in the morning with a huge wrench or spanner and move that dish manually and just
Yes.
watch that satellite for 2 weeks, and then when you're bored of that, you go back up on the roof and just move it a bit. And it was magical to know that you're getting it right from that country, bounced off a satellite. It's not the same with the internet, but I guess we shouldn't be complaining. We have a luxury problem, too much content now.
That's true. And by the way, Benjamin clarified his question. If you can find it and bring it up, he says,
Yep.
yeah, exactly. He was wondering if that antenna is basically an E-field probe, and yes, it is, absolutely. It's just simply a high impedance plate, and that's exactly what it's doing. Yes, it's an E-field probe for all intents and purposes. And then Chris said that apparently I lied and said that the SDR link is not in the video description. Well, happens. I put it in the chat, so it's the URL is there, and the password and username is just Baltic Lab.
Awesome. I want to go back to this ESP32. Where is it? There. Because we do have a question from Deconti Engineering. Curious if the ESP32 C3 SuperMini Wi-Fi is actually something to build and install in home use rather than his Google Wi-Fi set. I happen to have one of those Google Wi-Fi mesh systems. Deconti bought the Google Wi-Fi some time ago and needs a new solution. Works well for me. I'm not sure why you need a new solution, but what do you say to that? Let's go to you, Saad. You've got a lot of experience with ESP32.
Hey, I don't know what's like, what do you wants to do with that ESP32? Because if a Google Wi-Fi set is, I think, the router, you cannot
Yeah.
make a ESP32 a router. You can make it for
Okay.
a home automation system, for sure.
That's a good point. What's your feeling, Sebastian?
Honestly, I know too little about it. I don't use ESP32s all too often at all, and I wouldn't feel confident in voicing an opinion that I don't have enough knowledge base on.
Yeah, I haven't done a lot of ESP32 myself either. I've got a lot more experience with, say, Arduino and Raspberry Pi. But yes, ESP is definitely something I have to learn more about because they're getting more and more popular in the world.
Yes,
So
they sure are.
I wanted to ask you what you're working on lately.
Well, I'm working on project, which was, I don't have anything to show while picture, but I can talk about it. It's the old project which I did was the LoRa sensor node, and where I bunched up a couple of modules, a separate PPT tracker, some sensors, charger, LoRa module, and now the main idea was that I mentioned in at the end of my article that I'm going to be making another version of it where I'm going to be summing all of these things into one PCB, and that's what I did. So it's going to have a rack wireless LoRa WAN module, then a GPS, as well as an ESP32, a bunch of other stuff as well. So it's going to be a whole nice pack of modular PCB for this type of application.
Awesome. Well, I'm done with my MIDI experiments with using AI on the keyboard behind me, so I'm also looking for a new way to tinker. And I've got something to tinker with. I haven't had time to take it out the box, but it's a new Creality 3D printer. Still sitting in the box. Maybe this weekend I'll take it out once I've gotten the urgent work out of the way. Saad, you've done quite a bit of 3D printing as well, eh?
Yeah, pretty much. I also own Ender 3 V2 Neo, and I don't know how you're gonna. The thing is that assembling it is a little bit tricky if you don't know what you're doing. But the latest ones, they have everything in all-in-one, so you just have to. I think it's just two-step installation, and then you have to make sure everything is tight, the belts are not loose, and it's it's a little bit on and off. When you get it fully set for the first time and it prints perfectly, then don't even touch it. I would say don't even move its location because then you're gonna have a lot of problems.
Well, I'm running an inverter here for when the power does go out, but the other day the inverter didn't handle the power glitch. It switched off my desktop PC for like a quarter of a second, but that was enough to lose my documents. How is 3D printing when the power goes out? Do you give up on the whole project, or can you resume?
No, there are options that you can enable, which when the power goes, when it comes back, it starts from the same place. But in my experience, it didn't work well for me because of the nozzle temperature. It melts it because it stays there for a while now, and then when it heats up again from at that point, it melts the surroundings. So the finished product is not the best, but it somewhat finishes the print. But what I do is that I stop the print at that layer height. I start the print again from the remaining stuff, and then I epoxy it together, and that is much better than just relying on that power fail-safe feature.
Great. And it's taken me a long time to finally get around to getting a 3D printer. When I first saw them about 8 years ago, I was like, this is awful finish quality, but you're not going to be able to get injection molding done that cheaply. So even if it's a bit ridged, when you're making a custom container or something, an enclosure for your products, or Max Imagination is making drones using 3D printing. So I'm going to try that. I've got Max on next week, and hopefully I'll be able to print out something by then so that I can know what I'm talking about. And I'm scrolling through your channel again, Sebastian. How much 3D printing experience do you have?
None.
Okay.
I've always refused to get a 3D printer because it would be just another thing to do. I'm actually, as I guess the British would say, posh, that I would just send it off. I design stuff on my own, and then I just send it off for someone else to print and send it to me. Because then if something doesn't work, I can complain to them and don't have to spend even more hours on optimizing processes. But I have some very competent people in my environment that know how to do that. So if I need something done quickly, there's always someone with a printer that knows what they are doing and that can warn me of why my design won't print well.
Great. And do you send it to people with very expensive printers, or just the El Cheapo that I've got?
Very expensive printers. They do that stuff commercially, but since I'm friends with them, of course, it's a little bit cheaper. It's usually favor for favor. If I have some large prints or I need huge quantities, I'll actually just send it off to PCBWay and the likes, which also do 3D printing now, or even milling. If you need some metal parts, I just send it off, and 3 days later, sometimes 5, it shows up at your doorstep. That's yeah, not another thing I'm going to get into, which I'm going to claim now. We don't know how it's going to be in a year down the road.
Well, I'll show you what I got, and it was on sale. If you do the math, divide that by about 20, you'll get the price in euro. Now, I did have a lengthy conversation with both ChatGPT and Claude AI to figure out what to buy, and I was told by these bots that you've already got a lot of Raspberry Pis lying around. You've already got a touchscreen, so you can upgrade this later on. So you don't have to go for a more premium model. You've got so much hardware lying around, you may as well use it.
That one I've actually seen in action before. I'm always amazed when I see them work, but like I said, I'm not going to put up just another thing to spend time on in my office, but I've seen that one multiple times. And that's the one that you have that's still sitting in the box?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Got it very recently. The box is ready to be opened, ready for an unboxing. I'll get to it, don't worry.
Yeah, this one is one of the easiest to assemble because as you can see, the top U bracket or the U structure, you just simply bolt it from the bottom and you're good to go. But you gotta have to start, you know, I believe this is belts. So then you have to tighten the belts, make sure the tension is right. But they really, you know, refine their product reality throughout the process. And now I think they make really good printers. The first thing I would do if you have a Raspberry Pi is just install Clipper on it or Octoprint. And then you don't have to plug in the memory card every time and you have a new print. You can just simply put the printer at the side, and from your computer you can control everything. But you're gonna have to spend 4 to 5 hours trying to get the print right for the first time, and then save the settings and hope you don't mess that up. But it's a really nice way.
I've just got the printer and the one spool of white PI, I think it is. That's all I've got for now. Any accessories you recommend? I've seen people talk about alcohol wipes, some glue sticks to hold the print down, stuff like that, or a glass base for the printer. None of which I have, but I'm curious.
I don't have any one of them. I think it comes with a scraper to take off your prints, but the build plate itself, it's not glass, but it's some type of a different material. I don't know its name now. I can't say its name, but it's really sticky. You don't have to really worry about it now. The glass gives you a shiny finish, but I'm not a fan of it. I like the entire print is matte, so why would you like to have a base shiny? So I just keep it the way it is. And the printer by itself, you don't need any upgrades other than just install Clipper on Raspberry Pi just for that, I would say, convenience. But other than that, and also it helps you print faster. But other than that, I don't think you need any other materials or tools to make it better. It's just about tuning it right, and once you get it right, it works fine for a couple of prints. And yeah, as it's a machine, you gotta have to do a little bit of maintenance time to time when you see a little bit of difference in your prints. But once you set it right, hopefully it will last a couple of prints.
Well, thanks. You don't mind if I bother you in the upcoming days to help me get this thing up and running. Good tip from Brian Smith: get a machinist square and dial indicator to level the table. And if anyone else has any great solutions, just let us know in the chat. I'd appreciate it because I'm brand new at this 3D printing thing. By the way, Sebastian, I have seen some people comment on your background. It is nice. What did you do there? What's that lighting?
Yeah, speaking of ESP32, that is the only ESP32 project I've ever done in my life. So there is a few hundred individually addressable LEDs back there. And it's an open project called WLED, which you can just download. And then you can actually, hang on, I could share my screen, I guess, right? Yes, I can. Which one would that be? Let's try this. Can you get that in there somewhere? I mean, you can
Yeah,
take my
sure.
face off, and yeah, there we go. So this is the platform, and that directly correlates to the LED in the background. So if I switch everything off, it goes away. I can control the brightness, and I can control every single LED individually. And now I don't know where the setting was. Control the colors. It is sound reactive if you want it to be. And you can just chain in other LEDs if you have some from a completely different system. Just hook up another ESP32. You can tell this ESP32 to control the other one over Wi-Fi through UDP packets. It's pretty cool, and it's free. You just plug the ESP straight out of the box into your USB port, install it, tell it what LEDs you want, and they can be digitally addressable LEDs. They can just be normal PWM outputs, whatever you want. And yeah, that's what I did there. And I think it looks pretty nice, if I may say so myself.
It does indeed. And I've got these two studio lights on Bluetooth. Fortunately, Bluetooth, because I'm having trouble with my Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
My internet service provider is being difficult. So I've had to connect my PC directly using PPPoE to the modem. But because these lights are not Wi-Fi, I can still control them and change the colors and turn them off and on.
Nice.
I'm in the dark, but nothing quite as fancy as yours. Change the color temperature, red, blue, green. But I thought, since we're doing show and tell, I bought some things that are useful, and then I bought some things just for fun. So there's electroluminescent wire. And initially I thought LED, but you're right, electroluminescent, because I can hear the squealing of the power supply when I switch it on. So there's my little Temu lighting system. I could probably sit in the dark here with that.
Now that would be a nice electromagnetic compatibility project, just to measure all the radiation from the EL transformer.
That's actually a good point. I do have a tool here that I got for review, if I could find it. I'll show you the box. It does have an EMF multimeter. So it's a multimeter as well, but it measures radio signals in the air. My TV, for example, is pretty noisy when I point it at that.
Nice. Yeah, you showed your old analog TV not too long ago.
Yes, that is a Sony monitor that's still right next to me, because I told you I've got this hankering to do some teletext and some captures on VHS. And yeah, I'm just a hoarder. I can't get rid of the stuff. And I'm trying to get it all onto YouTube before I die, or maybe I'll just save it for retirement when I've got more time. Annie T, welcome back. Annie T says hi. Anyone else have any questions on 3D printing? You know what? I want to do a segue here on different programming methods and language, because one thing I've seen come up a lot lately is Rust. Do either of you have any experience with Rust? Nothing whatsoever. Well, we're going to have to get some experience then, because I've been interested. I've been seeing it come into many applications lately, and I've seen interest grow in it. If you go to the Elektor website, there you see there's a banner. There's an upcoming show on July 16th. It's for embedded devs out there. Elektor Academy Pro is hosting a full-day online conference on 16 July. I'm definitely planning on being there. So it's all about building safe and secure embedded systems with Rust. It's called Rust on Embedded and features 6 expert-led talks, live Q&As, and real-world use cases. So from ESP32 to RISC-V, and even industrial mining apps. So whether you're, like me, just Rust curious, already building with it, you'll learn practical stuff. Let me click on the banner, actually, so show you a bit more. Practical stuff you can actually use. So check it out. That's a long link. You should be able to go to elektor.com/rust. But here are all the details at that URL. And while I'm showing the webpage, as you know, halfway through the show, I normally give out the code word for this prize that you can win. And I think our code word that we decided on was Circuits 2025. So there's the page, electormagazine.com/Elektor-Lab Talk-giveaway, and the code is Circuits 2025. So let's throw it over to the audience, as neither I nor Saad nor Sebastian knows much about Rust. Anyone in the audience that can tell us a bit? Anybody having fun with Rust? While we wait for that answer, nice one from Renee Bosch. Okay, sorry, I clicked on Elektor Labs. It's scrolling too fast for me. For printing with PETG filament, I use cheap paper tape from Lidl on the bed. Works fine. Yes, someone did suggest some blue painter's tape to me, so I did get some of that as well. Nice. Good tips. Let's bring that down. So what are you working on in the future, Saad? What is Elektor holding your nose to the grindstone on?
A couple of things. The first one is I'm working on a project with Jens. It's a audio transceiver. It's probably going to be featured soon in the magazine. We're working on that. Then I'm working on a new PB monitor. The last one we just got released, lead acid battery monitor. And this one I'm going to be changing a few things, changing the ADC, changing how I'm going to do all the stuff, and also the software as well, so make it a little bit better. The first one was most of a test and trial, but I'm happy with the results, but not happy with the measurements. So the second version is going to be more focused on the measurement of the readings.
Jens did tell me a bit about that audio transceiver. He loves him some good audio. Remind me of what's different about that. The latency was low.
Yeah, we're using the nRF24 for wireless communication, the ESP32 C3 as the main mic controller. Then we are using a Digilent audio module, and then we have an SD card. So the main PCB can do pretty much everything which Jens wants, but it can be used for different purposes as well. So it can be used as an MP3 player, and vice versa. Like you have nRF24, you have an ESP32, then you have an SD card reader, you have a bunch of I/O for the OLED screen buttons here and there. So it's pretty much of course, again, it's a version 1, so it's just a test and trial, and we're thinking of doing a version 2 soon. But first you have to test everything out, and hopefully any new features would be welcome.
Yeah, and who knows, it might even become an Elektor branded product at some time in the future, if you're happy with the way it works. Sebastian, I'm just scrolling through here, and I'm wondering if you've deleted videos, because I go from 12 days ago to 9 years ago in just a bit of a scroll down. But I was interested in the stereo multiplex. I'm not sure how it works for FM broadcast, but I know they have a weird thing with turntables, where it's one needle, but somehow you get stereo because it is multiplexed in that way. It's both an X and a Y axis. Do you know much about LPs?
I don't know anything about turntables, except that those needles are very easy to break, which I figured out as a very young teenager who destroyed a very expensive turntable very quickly.
Well, you know, we've all done that. I remember breaking lots of things that I shouldn't have broken.
Then I figured out if you just take a sharp object and stick it into the spinning disc, then you can also hear the music, and the disc is ruined afterwards.
Yeah, it was easier to understand when the LPs were all mono. It's a pity that you don't know much about LPs, because I would have liked to know if there's any overlap between the stereo multiplexing that they do here on FM versus the way they encode audio onto LPs using analog waveforms.
I would find that interesting too, because I'm pretty sure there was backwards compatibility to mono, right? So
yeah, very interesting.
Ask Dr. Google.
And let's have a look at this. Yes, I do have a Laserdisc player as well. It's, for those of you who don't remember, it looks like a CD, but it's very big. And most people thought those were digital, but they were actually analog. It's an analog waveform that the laser reads to get you your picture back onto your screen. All kinds of interesting encoding and stuff going on there as well. Let's take a look at our chat again. Another thing on the link, Abdullah says the link doesn't work, so maybe we could check that out in the background.
So apparently, a quick search revealed that that LP multiplexing has nothing to do with the stereo multiplexing. They simply use basically spatial modulation, so one goes in one axis and the other one goes in the other axis. No funky frequencies and multiplexing like that.
Oh, yeah. For the longest time, I thought that to get stereo, you needed to have like a split needle for your turntable. Turns out not the case. 2 different axes, 2 different signals. You are doing a bunch of audio stuff as well, I see on your channel. I like the preamp. Where is that? Ah, there we go. This preamp circuit.
Oh,
Did you do that for fun, or did you need it?
This is one of my oldest videos that I just did simply because I didn't want to have a content gap for weeks at that point. I mean, this is like, what, 9 years ago? If you scroll down for a little bit, I needed it for a double sideband transmitter. And
7th of June.
This is such an insignificant part of a circuit. I just decided to make a video on it. And for whatever reason, this was actually one of the most successful videos on my channel. Now, the interesting thing about that is it laid dormant for a while. Nobody watched it for over 5 years, and all of a sudden, this video shot through the roof. And I've been promising people for at least 2 years that I'm going to make a redo. And luckily, I didn't specify when I'm going to do that redo, but I need to. And yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. And it was 10 years ago this month, June 7th. So happy 10th anniversary to this video.
Thanks. And I lost a lot of weight since then, apparently.
I was wondering who that was for a second there.
And also hair.
Yeah. You've lost hair too. That's probably where all the weight went. I found a pretty simple circuit. 1 resistor, 1 capacitor. Now, it's not going to be that impressive to the rest of you guys who have studied this and done engineering and analog, but I'm not very good at analog. I'm a digital guy. And I was running Arduino PWM output and playing with different duty cycles. But on the oscilloscope, all you get is a square wave because that's what the PWM is. If I wanted to simulate a sine wave or a triangle, I got some good advice off the internet. It's 1 resistor, 1 capacitor before the scope's input. And now you can have other shapes other than squares. So I always like simple circuits like that. I mean, there's not a lot going on there. I trust myself to be able to build that.
Yeah, but looking back at it, I would have many complaints about the circuit. Quite a few complaints, actually. But just a 0.1 microfarad capacitor is way too small. The bias point of that circuit is questionable, but it works. And the extremely high output impedance, which basically allows no load at the output. But, oh well, people liked it, and it works. There's many comments that said they're using it. But yeah, sometimes it's the simple things that people would like to watch.
Yeah, I built a circuit straight from schematic onto stripboard. And it was a video circuit for converting component to RGB, and it just didn't perform as well. And then I was brought to understand that maybe don't do it on stripboard next time with wires all over the place. Make yourself a PCB for frequencies like that. I didn't think it would be too bad. It's only 6 megahertz. Not like I was working on 160. But yeah, the results were subpar.
Yeah, it's 6 megahertz parasitic capacitances will already get you very quickly.
And I'm sure you agree with that, Saad, because you're also an analog genius.
Quite the opposite.
Well, you're making a lot of analog circuits and energy meters and that sort of thing. So I would say you know more than I do, that's for sure. Let's have a look at this tone control. I wanted to ask you about that. I've lost it again. Oh, there it is. Tone control circuit. Why did you build that? Not something I use. Oh, it's members only.
Yeah, you gotta sign up for membership real quick.
Okay.
What was the motivation of that? I mean, I don't know. It was 10 years ago. No, actually, I used that one. I used that in a very cheap guitar amplifier. I remember that because I had a very cheap electric guitar, and while I had huge amounts invested in test equipment, I apparently didn't have money for a good sounding electrical guitar. So I just built a tone control unit myself, which I think it was simply 2 RC filters. One was a high pass, one was a low pass, and then a center tap pot in between that just basically changes which one gets passed through more. It wasn't more than that.
And was there actual need for it? Did you need the tone to be controlled?
Yes, because it sounded horrible without any adjustments.
Okay, I
I'm
can see
not
that
gonna
being
claim now that it sounded all too much better afterwards, but yeah, that was the motivation behind it.
Okay, I'll join your channel for approximately 30 euro cents a month. I can afford that. I am a member of Elektor naturally. Then maybe I can see. No, now it wants me to put in credit card details. That's not going to happen right now, but I'll join your channel later then.
Come on, no risk, no fun. Share your credit card info.
Not in front of the audience. Then again, it is the Elektor audience. I trust them. Here is a comment from Micro Knight. It sounds like Michael Knight. It's pretty crude, but works. And then from Renee Bosch again, the Abacom software Lochmaster is an excellent program to realize circuits on a strip board. Yeah, I have used Lochmaster a long time ago, like 20 years ago. But I think with this video circuit, I just went straight from schematic to soldering.
I've actually used that software too when I was a whole lot younger and had more hair. Also their layout software and all that stuff back in the days. And it was really good. But I had a discipline problem, which I still do, to plan it out and then actually solder it up like that.
Oh, I see it's still going. 50 euro. Not exactly cheap, but very useful. Like I said, I haven't used it probably since version 1. We're at version 4. It's looking good. Looking good. I must check that out again. Although I'm trying to move away from strip boards and like actually be like you professionals and get them done by PCBWay or something like that. Because that wasn't really possible 20 years ago. You had to go to a factory and order 100 of them, even though you only wanted to make 2 circuits. You just either take 100 or take nothing. But,
or etch them yourself. I mean, even though we have PCBWay, I'm not a fan of putting any alpha revision or 0.1 through 0.9 revision onto PCBWay. I don't do that. If I can, I will still use simple perforated boards, be it strip boards or just the 100 times 160 millimeter standard Euro format. That's always my first step. If I have to, in a first revision, to use surface mount or something more RF critical, I will actually still etch the circuit boards myself. I will do the photo transfer method, so the classical thing that everyone did back then. Then I have a questionable etching process with hydrogen peroxide and hydrochloric acid, which you shouldn't do at home if you don't know what you're doing. Although I have an article on my blog how to do that safely, but still, I wouldn't recommend doing that on your kitchen table. But yeah, we didn't have those possibilities back in the day. I remember when I was 18, I had a PCB run where I got 10 PCBs that were tiny. I think they were 10 by 10 centimeters, and I paid over 350 euros for it.
Wow. Yeah, and I've been scared of it because of the acids and the environmental pollution. We did speak about this before. I wouldn't have known how to dispose of those chemicals. But still, it would have been a good experience. Is it like, is there a certain smell to that setup that takes you back and gives you memories from etching?
That setup that I'm using shouldn't give you any smell, because if it does, then it's chlorine gas, and you should probably leave the room. Although with chlorine, it can be said as long as you still smell it, is probably a good thing. But I remember the distinct smell of ferric chloride very well. I think we all do. We've all used it.
Yeah.
And we've also ruined tabletops, clothes, and anything possible with those stains. If we would have just known back then that you can just change the oxidation state of the iron in it and just completely remove the stains, but who knew? But I think we all know what smell I'm talking about.
Yeah. Excellent point by Chris White here. which brought back memories for me. Encoding stereo onto LPs uses the standard L plus R and L minus R method. The vertical and lateral movement of the needle is sensed separately and added, subtracted from each other to get the left and the right channels. You just reminded me, Chris, of how movie surround sound used to be encoded. They only had 2 optical tracks on the film, so how do you get surround? Well, they encoded it using that method. So in the early 90s, I found that I could do karaoke by removing the center channel. So how do I do this without writing? I don't have a stylus yet, but you've got your positive output on your one speaker and your positive output on the other, and then you've got the 2 grounds that go into the amplifier. If you take the grounds out, connect them to each other, then you've got a circuit that cancels out and you lose the center channel. That was like magic to me.
Doesn't that still work today for if you take songs and you want to get yourself a karaoke version? Usually, the only thing that's usually in the center is the voice, as you said. I think that's still how some digital track creators work. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it does still work. If you're running a stereo setup with just 2 speakers, you can kill the center. It depends on how much the reverb they've used. Like some people like to use a little bit too much stereo reverb. But you could take a surround movie and do that same trick, and you will hear the stuff that's meant to be in the surround more emphasized because you've killed the main dialogue track. So thanks, Chris, for that reminder. I had lots of fun with that, isolating the surround in my Laserdisc movies back in the 90s. No need to do that anymore. I now have a 5.1 system. It's actually a 7.1, but I haven't gotten around to buying the extra 2 speakers that they did not include with the system. So 2 unused channels. Yeah, I love the information like that from Chris because my brain goes back a long way and I forget stuff. So thanks for that. Maybe for show and tell next time. Saad, have you done much in the audio industry, in the audio projects? I know that Jens loves audio, but sadly he's not here today. He's feeling a bit under the weather. How much audio have you done?
Sadly, none. Most of it was actually IoT, cooling, and that sort of stuff, product development, but nothing to do with audio at all or analog development. It was mostly digital and programming. So, yeah. I had no clue what you're talking about when you were talking about centering and then canceling the channels, because I'm really away from that topic, very far away.
Yeah, well, if you use an audio mixer, I'm glad that I can say something that you don't know about for a change. If you use an audio mixer, like mixing desks, like Jens would have, when you're mixing the music, you can pan an instrument to the left and you can pan something to the right. And normally they put the voices in the middle. So if you disconnect the ground from those speakers and connect them to each other, you will kill this singer in the middle, which that's how they did it a lot of the time in the 90s. They used to work with other ways of still maintaining the bass by putting a low pass filter there. So you still get rid of the voice, but you get, because oftentimes the drums are in the center, or the bass drum or the bass guitar. But now it's all so easily. I can go into Audacity and just run an L minus R mathematically. So yeah, things have certainly changed. And I'm glad there are still people in our chats who remember these old tricks. Left plus R. Left
Brian,
plus
have
right,
you
left
then
minus right.
have you ever played or listened to 5D music, what they call it, where they really go crazy on the spatial modulation and continuous shifting of the location of all instruments and voices? Even if you take commonly known songs, put on good headphones and pick up a 5D version on YouTube, it's a very extreme and weird experience. A good
I have
one,
not. My daughter told me about 5D music, and I said to her, there's no such thing as 5D music. But
That's just
now I'm
marketing term,
intrigued.
of course.
Yeah, it's marketing hype.
Yeah, listen to it. You have good headphones. It's crazy what they come up with.
I'll check it out. Another thing you reminded me of that I used to like playing with in the 90s was binaural recording, where you space the microphones exactly, and then you try and get something soft and pulpy to be ahead. And yeah, sometimes I even fooled myself. I got the dog barking and I turned around to see the dog and then realized it was in the corner.
That reminds me of an RF topic, binaural receivers, where they basically said, I mean, of course, we have diversity receivers today, which have 2 different antennas and try to determine, okay, what can I phase out and how can I optimize receiving the signal? But actually using the intense computer that's in between our ears, basically have 2 receivers, 2 different antennas, and feed both outputs of the receivers into one ear only. And it's crazy how your brain is capable to say, okay, the noise is over there, what I'm interested in is over there, and home in onto it without any digital signal processing.
Yeah, I've heard fighter pilots do that, and I did an experiment once where I put 3 different news channels on at the same time. So I would say have Fox News on the right, because that's the right wing, and have MSNBC on the left, and have CNN in the middle, and try it. And yeah, you can focus on there, or you can focus on there, whatever. And you've got the 3 screens, so whichever one you're looking at, your brain automatically switches to that audio. I'm looking for a song called My Sharona. My mother used to like it. I would say Google it. I can't play it here because of copyright reasons, but I would say to the audience, look up the knack, My Sharona. I'll drop the name in the chat. That is quite an extreme stereo. You've got drums on one side, you've got guitar in the other, and you've got the voice in the middle. And that's, I think they did it back then because stereo was still something relatively new and they wanted to show off. So put your headphones on and check out this song after the show.
Yes,
Dumped
I'm
into the
gonna
chat.
copy
But
that
now-
for sure. There we go.
I'm definitely going to go and check out 5D music. See, my daughter was ahead of her time. I just brushed it off. Marketing hype, 5D. What is this?
That's what you get for not listening to your kids.
Exactly. Well, now, after the show, I'm going to have to ask her to show me. Reminder here of what I spoke to you earlier about Rust on Embedded. You can join the Elector Academy Pro Conference, and I will be joining, and that's the URL. It's an event website aggregating, so it's elector.skooks.co. But just pause here and you can get it down, or visit our website, electromagazine.com, and click on the banner like I did earlier. I'm just having a look at the chats here.
Me
Frank
too.
says My Sharona by Devo, but no, I think it was the Knack originally. Or you might be reading the name on YouTube, the Knack Vivo. That's a music aggregation service. Pussy, interesting comment here. You can listen to I/Q directly from SDR with headphones, like from the Elektor SDR Arduino Shield, and with some practice you can hear locations of different signals.
I've
That's
always wondered
interesting.
about that. I need to try that. I mean, I have plenty of IQ sources here. I need to definitely try that. Sure, I mean, why not?
Well, I remember something about IQ in the encoding in NTSC video or something. Is it the same? Or what is exactly IQ besides intelligent quotient? In-phase and quadrature components.
Yes, exactly. There's just a 90-degree offset between the two. You take the signal and then you have a sine and a cosine oscillator. So just a 90-degree phase shift between the two, which gives you the phase information as well as the amplitude and frequency, everything you need. Getting that phase information is, of course, the most important for all kinds of angle modulations, even FM and stuff like that. And, of course, higher order digital modulations.
Ah, I see. You're reminding me of some other little hack that I got in the 90s from a magazine. I was trying to pick up a TV station that was just 2 channels away from another TV station, which was much more powerful, and there's only an 8 megahertz gap between them. And in one of my television magazines, speaking of phase, they suggested soldering in a quarter wave stub in the middle of the cable. Like that seemed crazy, but it seemed to work somewhat by getting rid of the interfering signal.
Stub filters are still very powerful tools. Of course,
Really?
for those you needed coax cable for those frequencies, but still in gigahertz designs. If you have issues, put a stub there, put a stub here. And if you don't know what you're doing at all, but somebody pays you to know what you're doing, you just take a strip of copper tape, stick it in there, and cut little pieces off until it works. You still see that in some commercial designs that somebody just by hand moved their tweezers with a little bit of tape over some point until the matching was correct and put a solder blob there. You even still see that in military 10 gigahertz applications.
That's
Stuffs
great.
are awesome.
It was also helpful for my big satellite dish because I was like 2 kilometers away from the main television transmitter that had microwave dishes on it. So it really messed with my C-band satellite reception, but that's where I learned some of those, like pick up the signal, attenuate it, and use it 180 degrees out of phase to cancel itself out.
Many noise
Frank,
cancelling systems for amateur radio operators work that way. They just pick up the noise individually, phase shift it, add it to the received signal, and the noise disappears, at least to some degree.
Yeah, I tried explaining that I was just a teenager and I went to the satellite store and the senior engineer was there, and I told him this trick that I read in the magazine. And I said, you just pick up more of that noise. And he said, why would you want more of the noise? He said, once the interference is there, you can't get rid of it. But he was wrong.
Yes.
Frank de Hart, he prefers the Devo version of My Sharona. So I've definitely got my playlist building up for tonight. I've got to do some 5D music. I've got to do the Devo version of My Sharona. And Chris White has a suggestion. A fun one for stereo was a song called Hernando's Hideaway on an album called Stereo Action. It's on YouTube. I will check it out. Some nice
also adding that to my list.
And Saad, we'll forgive you if you only check it out tomorrow because you are 3.5 hours into the future from us. So it's what, almost 8:30 p.m. there?
Yeah, 8 p.m. almost.
Okay. I think I'm about to wrap up. Let's just, David wants to know if there's a way to get old Elektor project PCBs. I think they're hard to come by, but you can make your own in those old Elektor magazines. If you remember, you can pull up a 1991 magazine and there's the circuit design. You can etch it yourself like Sebastian has done in the past, or you can, I'm sure there's a way you can get it into your circuit design program and then send it off to JLPCB or PCBWay or something like that. Something I have been looking at is recapturing old boards that were actually designed by hand, like that Texas Instruments computer back there. That was before CAD, so everything was handwritten onto blueprints, I guess. So I'm trying to get a high resolution scan and then recreate the board in KiCad. So another little bit of a challenge for me. Before I go with doing any upgrades, let's just replicate it exactly as is. So yes, no reason you couldn't do that with old Elektor PCBs. Frank has one more suggestion for my playlist. Check out Whippet Devo as well. I will do. That will be fun. Anyway, we've just hit the top of the hour now. I think I'll call it. It was a very interesting conversation, although we missed Jens. He had a lot he could have contributed a lot on the audio side of things, but I enjoyed the conversation regardless. So I'd like to thank our audience from around the world for joining us. And thank you, Saad, Senior Engineer, for staying late for us.
Thank you, Brian.
And thanks again to Sebastian from Baltic Lab. Always a pleasure having you on. And I do like your new studio. I'm thinking maybe I should take some of these EL wires. I did buy a bunch. I haven't tried them, but yeah, maybe I could do something in the background like you've done.
Yeah, then you would definitely have content for an electromagnetic compatibility video. You would have some content for your own channel.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, thank you very much, guys, for joining us. And thank you to Benjamin Hall and all the others from around the world watching us. Good night, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.